Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to my close-up eyes. I'm going to jump right into today's video. We are doing colorful looks just for fun. Let's get started. First up, I'm going to put on, I do have some eyeliner and mascara on. I had on a different look earlier that I just wiped off. So I'm just going to take a little eye primer to start. This one is from Urban Decay. This is their Eden Primer Potion. I like this one for colorful looks because it has a little bit of a creamy color to it. So I just find that it makes the colors pop a little more. I also have the Anastasia Beverly Hills white primer. I just find that that one does not perform equally on every single eyeshadow that I have. So when I bought this at the Ulta sale at 50% off, I knew I'd get a lot of good use out of it. Okay, I'm just tapping it in my finger. So today's video was inspired by my friend Katie. She was letting me know that she recently got a colorful eyeshadow palette and was just looking for some, inspiration, suggestions on different colorful looks in general. And I've actually tried to film this video a couple of times, and each time the looks that I had in mind just didn't quite translate on camera the way I'd hoped. Let me see if I turn those down a little bit. That's good. They just didn't quite turn out the way I'd hoped, so I'm trying again. Hopefully third time's the charm. Okay, so for my looks today, I'm going to be using this little palette that I put together myself. Just has some variety of colors and different tones, and then I'll also be dipping into my little custom palette with like neutrals. Okay, so when I have a colorful look in mind, typically my place in my mind that I go to start things out is I think of 3 colors, and that's usually a good starting point because it's enough variety to have dimension to the eye, but it's not too many to look incohesive, if that makes sense. So for my first look, I'm gonna try to do kind of like a yellow orangey, like sunsetty eye, if you will. I'm going to use kind of like this yellow, orange, peach, and maybe a little bit of this red. Okay. So when it comes to placement, that's up to you and your eye shape, your preference, your specific, desire of how you want to change your eye look. I have a few go-to shapes that I kind of, feel comfortable doing. And then there's a few that I really love on others, but I feel like don't quite complement my eye. So if you really love this eye color combination, you can always switch up the pattern into where you place things, or vice versa. If you love where I place this, you can just choose different colors to put instead. So, none of this is like you have to follow this step by step. It's just more of like suggestion, motivation, that kind of stuff. A go-to pattern for me is light, medium, dark. You can do this pattern with like a light gray, medium gray, dark gray. You could do it with like a gold, midtone brown, dark brown. You could do it with like a light peach, middle peach, pink. You can pretty much do anything. The idea for me is to gradient from light to dark and to really just have the darkest on the outside and make that inside really bright. I just find that that really works for my eye shape. I don't have a ton of lid space, especially I've noticed as I've gotten older, my hood just drops down over my eye a bit more than it used to. That's just how things go. So I find that if I go light to dark, it just sort of makes the darkest feature on the outside and just sort of makes the eye perceive, you know, a slightly lifted look. So that'll be my first look. So I'm taking yellow. Let me see if I'm in frame. And, okay, and you can use any palette you have. I feel like there's no palette that's like gonna change your life when it comes to color. Whatever you prefer. Okay, when it comes to color, I think it can be intimidating at first because you might be afraid to mess up or not do anything, you know, the way everyone else does it. And I say that's nonsense. You can do anything you desire. If it makes you happy, that's all that matters. So I took a flat, denser brush and I just patted that onto my inner eye right there. And for my particular desire, I don't want to take the color up too high just for this particular look. If I really wanted to make it bold and wow and attention, I would fill up my entire eye space. But for the sake of this, I want to purposely keep it a little bit more subtle, even though it's yellow, orange, and red. So next, I am taking orange and I'm placing it first where I want it the brightest, which is right in the very, very middle. And I'm going to slightly cover a portion of the yellow that I put down. So it just sort of has that most vibrant yellow to fade to yellow to orange, the most vibrant orange. And I'm going to take it slightly over to where the red will be. Like so. I guess I might look a little bit like a candy corn. I've decided to go with red and I'm placing it right on this outer section. And at the moment, I'm not super preoccupied with the outer blend. I really just want to make sure that the color has been placed where I want it. So when I have this look, I want it to be primarily on the lid with a little bit peeking out in the crease. And I think that's just fun so that when you are wearing vibrant colors, it doesn't have to be like full glam smoky. It could just kind of be like, oh wow, like you have a really colorful look. I didn't notice. If that's possible. Okay, I'm taking my color switch. You can see I've used it. I've had this for years. I use it on my less expensive brushes to change color off, like so. Okay, I'm back. There was a bit of a technical difficulty, so apologies if the lighting or angle is a little off. As I was saying about the wonderful switch, you take your bristles that have powders on it, you take it off here, and it just removes the surface of the color without dampening or altering the state of the brushes. I mentioned inexpensive bristles only because some of my more expensive brushes are very delicate and I just don't want to risk roughing them up. So anyway, I have a fluffier brush now, and this is where I want to go in and just sort of buff the edges a bit. So starting with that yellow, just gently moving in the crease. I've decided to take a finer pointed brush, and I just want to kind of buff out that red a little bit more. Depending on how blended you're wanting it to be, you can take a little bit more of the product on the brush and just work that to be a little bit more blended. I've seen on Instagram a few people doing this kind of look, but with very precise application, purposely not blending the edges, and I think that looks really cool too. you have your 3-compartment blend, this is where you could take the liberty to make it even a little bit more dimensional if you desire. I'm taking a little bit of white on a very precise point brush, and I'm putting it kind of right where the yellow begins, kind of like I would with painting. If I wanted just a tint of the same color, I'm just going to be adding white and mixing it in with the color I'm using, so it kind of has like that transition of that white to yellow to orange. Take a rich purple, almost mimicking that like black effect, and place that on the outer edge, and then go back in with some of that red just before it, and with my blender just harmonize those together. And then with a little bit of a makeup remover cotton pad, I can take it up along the edge just to kind of make a crisp line. And I can just sort of finesse this. So there we have that first look, that yellow, orange, red with a hint of white, a hint of purple. And essentially you can really take that pattern and utilize any 3 main colors that you want that flow into one another to make this kind of look. So now let's move on to my other eye. So I just actually scratched this whole eye. It just wasn't coming together the way I had visioned it to be. So we are going again. I'm still going to use the same colors I had in mind, but just a different strategy. I'm determined this time. Okay, so we are going to be using this bluish tealy colors. Just like over here how I did light to dark, over here I want to do a light to dark gradient. So lightest being up here, mid-tone here, and then a darkest on the actual lid. Let's do it. Again, you can do these patterns with any colors, and you can embellish them further or less with lightening or deepening or adding glitter and that kind of stuff. I'm just sort of giving you, like, you know, templates to kind of start off with. Okay, so I'm going in with my lightest blue, and I'm taking this just on the tip of the brush. Okay, so for this look, I want to kind of have my starting point be just above where my eye crease is. And so I want to kind of tap it into place. And if I don't want a super smoky eye, I like to keep it low, kind of like how I did over here. Okay, I was cut off again, but I'm determined. Okay, so fluffy brush, gonna get that lightest color in that crease. If I don't want it super smoky, I'm gonna keep it relatively low to the eye shape, depending on how much space you have between your eyebrow and your crease. In my opinion, the higher you go, the smokier the smokier your eye look is perceived. If it's kept relatively low, I think that's a really great way to incorporate color into your eye without looking really extravagant. However, in the cases where you're like, I'm feeling smoky blue, then you want to take it up nice and high. So I'm keeping it relatively low with this lightest color. And the effect I want from this look is to make my eye look fairly round. Whereas with this look, that darkness kind of elongates and pulls out the eye shape, versus this light to dark kind of gives a rounding effect. And you'll see. Okay, so we've got that first blue. And going in with my pointer blender, I'm just wiping off any color that's on there. And then I'm going to go in with my secondary blue. And for this, I just want it right on the tip of the brush. And I don't want a ton. I just want enough to make, you know, impact. So for this technique, I'm looking into a mirror a little bit down so that I can see where I'm placing it. But I also want to make sure that when my eyes are open, that it's in the right spot. So it's kind of finding just right where the eye creases together. And I want that first blue to still come through, so I'm not taking over that. I'm doing it just right in between where the light blue starts and where the eye creases. Like so. And then in a moment I'll kind of go back and deepen up these colors, but I'm just sort of laying down the framework. And to be honest, if I just had those two colors, I could put on some liner and mascara and that could be a look on its own too. But for this, I'm going for that 3 color gradient. Back in with my flat packing brush. I want to go in with my deepest blue. And this is where I'm going to take the side of the brush, not the tip, the side. And this is where I'll just lay down the brush and I'll let the powders pack themselves on. Practically. Okay. So this is where I want to go back in and, you know, add more of the initial colors. So I'm going in with the second color just to taper off the darkest and mesh it in with the lightest, like so. And then with my more fluffy, going in with the lightest color and just re-adding it to the outer edges. Like so. I can add a little bit more of the deepest just to really darken up the lid. And before your eyes, you suddenly have this more like sultry eye without it looking so dramatic and so intense because you've really kept low that blending color. And then if this video was in black and white, the idea is that the tones of the colors are still going to be perceived to either make bigger or make smaller your eye shape. It's just fun that they are colored, in my opinion. Okay, now, to elevate both of these looks, I think it's fun to add corresponding colors to the lower lash line. However, I will 100% say that once you've added color to your lower lash line, this takes your colored eye look from casual to bam. There's something about adding it to the entire eye that it really transforms it somehow. So I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so I'm going to go over to this eye first. I'm going back in with the same colors that I used, the yellow, orange, and red. Get it right here. So I am taking a super flat, almost like a line brush, and I'm going in with the yellow first. And I'm just breaking up that lower lash line into thirds. So first third, second third, third third. using the exact same brush with a little bit of that yellow still on it, that's okay. I'm just stamping it into that second third. And then the red into that last third. And then adding it onto the outer edge. To me personally, this is a really complete color story on the eye. There's something about incorporating it all the way around that it just looks more like a piece of art, versus this looks more like, oh, you put some blue eyeshadow on. I mean, that's just me being a little silly. But now let me show you what I mean for this eye. Using that exact same brush, I love this brush for the bottom lash line. I just find that it fits perfectly right where I want it. Now, instead of going inner to outer, I'm kind of going to work my way from out to in, if that makes sense. Just like we did from out to in, I'm going to do my lightest blue kind of far away. Almost like where my like concealer would normally be. Middle color, squeezing it in next to it, and then deepest color right at the lash line. And like I said, before your eyes, you suddenly have two like completed eye looks just by completing all the way around. So I highly recommend it if you're really going for like an effect. I am gonna actually be doing two more looks. Let me just add really quick what I would do to further add to both of these. For this eye, I would take a pencil eyeliner and line my lower inner rim, and I would tightline my upper lash line. And then depending on maybe the occasion, I'll put on some false eyelashes. I just feel like that would really complete this eye and just make it, you know, something a little special. For this eye, personally, I think I would take some liquid liner on the top and extend it into a little wing, and then some liner on the lower lash line, but maybe just like halfway. So it really just helps to extend that effect that we're going for. Okay, so for these two looks, tell me what you think. What do you think of that light to dark, light to dark? Okay, let's move on to two more just for fun. Hey, and I'm back. It's the same day, just a little bit later, so the sun's gone down, so I'm just using my normal lights. Let me see if I can turn that down a smidge. Okay, so for my next two looks, I thought I would show how to use color in a halo eye, and then how to incorporate primary colors into a look. So for my halo eye, I think I'll use these like violet colors. And I'll use yellow. With keeping up with the 3-color rule that I'm coming up with, I'm going to start off with my lightest purple, go in with my darker purple, and then shine my yellow down the middle. So I'm taking a fluffier brush, and I'm just going to dot the out edge, dot the inner edge, and kind of have this like inner outer look. And then differently than a spotlight look, a halo really has more of like that curvature at the top. That's the same color as the outer edges, and then the pop of color mostly just goes right in that little middle area. but you can do it any way you like. Okay, you'll notice that with this look, I'm taking it up higher than I have with the other ones so far. That's just my preference for this. I think with this color, I think it's just really fun to make it a little bit more like big and bold. Okay, I'm going to take my lower lash line brush and dip into the same purple. And I'm going to just line the lower lash line. And now I'm taking my pointy blender and I'm going to go into my deeper purple. So this one was the first, and now I'm going to go into this like plummy color. And I'm just going to sort of dot it at the outer corner, but at like the lash line. And the same in the inner. And I'm going to kind of bring it vertical a little bit. But really trying to keep it on like the outer edges. And then using that same brush, going in with the first purple. And just kind of blending where the dark and the light meet. Going back with the dark. And just that combination going back and forth to deepen and blend together. I love the way that purple in general just looks so great on green eyes. I mean, obviously green and purple are not exactly complementary on the color wheel, but if you get like just the right shade of a purple for green, oh, it's so nice. Okay, going in with my big brush from the beginning. Now, if you have a smaller eye space than I do, you can still achieve this effect by just minimizing how high up you take everything. Using my bottom lash line brush, going in with that deeper purple, just taking it on the inner and outer. Going in with my lighter. The purples that I have in my collection are made from a vegan formula, so in general that usually means that they are made with artificial reds to make the purple, and so there is an effect, like a staining effect that usually happens from them, but I'm more happy with an eyeshadow that'll stain a little bit if it means that there aren't any carmine bugs crashed into it. Okay, so now, fun part. We have this big open spot. Now, I'm using the complementary color of purple, which is yellow, and I just think that makes a lot of really great contrast between the two shades. You could do like a red and a green, you could do black and white, you could do, you know, orange and blue, just something that's really gonna pop against each other, or you could do, you know, similar tone. You could just do like a lighter purple or like a silver or a gold, things like that. But I'm just in the mood to do like that pop of yellow right there. This is sort of like a dense, pointier brush, but it's flat. And I'm gonna use the same yellow that we used on that very first look, and I'm just going to focus it where there is no product. You've probably noticed already so far that I haven't used any glitters or sparkles or metallic colors this entire video. But I think those are amazing. I just think for this particular concept, I wanted to really just stick to matte and color and not introduce another texture. However, I think normally if I was doing this kind of look, I would do like a metallic right there, just because I really like the contrast of a matte and metallic. But I think this concept, oh my gosh, I just noticed I am a Laker. Oh my. Well, that's fine. Now if this was a spotlight look, I would take this all the way up and maybe taper kind of like a thin to thick effect. But because I really wanted to make this more of like a halo, it still has that purple out there. So when you're looking straight ahead, you really don't see that yellow entirely until they look down, which I think is, you know, kind of fun. Okay, so that is the whole look. Again, if I wanted to really complete this, I would do maybe like a black line on top, tight line that inner rim with black, and then put some thicker mascara on, but there we go. Hello again, I am back. I ended up doing this eye yesterday, and I was like, oh, I'll wing it, it'll be fine. And I was watching it back, and I just thought, you know what, this doesn't really look great. I'm just gonna scratch it. We'll do it again tomorrow. So what I decided to do actually with the night's rest is I'll do 2 more templates. So yesterday we covered light to dark, and then we covered light to dark. Did the halo, and I think what I still want to show is light to dark and then pop of color here. Okay, that is the plan. Let's see how it goes. Okay, I'm gonna use this green row for my light to dark coloring. Taking a fluffy brush and I'm dipping into my lightest color, which is my like lime green. And although it is going to be light, mid-tone, and darkest, at the very edge, I want a little bit of that light to peek through. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm taking the lime green and I'm just kind of spreading it all over. I'm keeping the blend rather low on this one, just because when I place my mid-tone and dark tone, I just want that green to just be on the edge and not let there be too much distance. Taking a flat, dense brush with that same lime green, and I'm just tapping it all over the lid. I really want that green to show there. taking a brush I used yesterday. This one is a little bit rounded, but it's flat. I'm just going to be using the very tippity end to go into my second green. Tapping off excess product off the brush, and this is where I want to place it, kind of right in the middle of where things will be. In my collection, something I noticed is that I really don't have a true green color. I just have like more like olivey greens and like brown toned greens. So I think if you have a collection of colors where you have a little bit more of like pure colors, your visions of what you can achieve might actually be easier to pan out versus me trying to do looks for the sake of it, and they're not really coming out how I planned, just because I think the tones are a little different. Okay, so we have that light and we have that middle tone. My tinier brush, it's also flat and dense, and I'm going in with my deepest green, which is more of like a green brown. And I'm just going to place it on the tip right at the top of the crease, and kind of doing like a rainbowy motion back and forth. That way when my eye is open, it sits just in the very back of that crease. And then going back in with that secondary color brush, just sort of touching it up. In my mind, this template of color placement is almost like a creases like, but I don't love taking a white or cream or whatever like sticky base and put it over powder. I have in the past, and it can look really good, but I just don't really have that skill set to make it look amazing like people do online. So I just find myself struggling. And so if you're like me and you really like the look of a cut crease, I think you can still achieve that effect by just doing it this method instead. So as you can see, I have my light, middle tone, dark tone, and then just that peaking of that lighter on the outer edge just to sort of transition it. To finish off this look, I'm going to take my middle tone green and just sweep it along the bottom of the lash line. Awesome. Okay, let's go on to my other side. So for my last look, I think this will be my last, who knows, I wanted to do a neutral eye on the top, but with a pop of color on the bottom lash line. I know that's not like, you know, brand new. Everyone's been doing that for a long time, but I still think it's worth mentioning because it still has a really powerful effect when it comes to putting color on the eye. Pretty much my go-to shape of eye is darkest on the outside, lightest on the inside, and then usually a combination of browns and grays. That's just like what I'm comfortable with. I know it's flattering, and I know it it kind of goes with any outfit, any setting, that kind of thing. So I'm just taking a small fluffy brush and I'm going to place a mid-tone brown kind of like on the outer edge of my eye. I'm just starting where my eyelashes stop at the edge here, and I'm kind of curving it in a way. I love the way that pointed edges look on a lot of people. I just find that I cannot make it always symmetrical. So kind of like a rounded edge works well for me. Words. And then I'm taking a lighter brown. It's kind of like a brown peach. And I'm just setting it in next to that mid-tone brown. And then I'll take a brush that has no product on it and then sort of sweep around the edges like so. Color brush. I'm going to pick up a darker brown and just place that on the outer edge like so. That way when your eye is open, you still have that sort of deepening effect on the outside. I'm gonna leave this area blank, but that's normally where I would take like my glitter or my shimmer or metallic or whatever color, and I would fill that in here. Now for the fun part. Okay, so this is where you could, do any color you want. I think I'm gonna go with like a vibrant peach color. And this is just where I wanna make it the star of the show. You don't need to make it thick to make it stand out, because usually the color can do that on its own. But you've gone from just like a neutral brown eye to something a little bit more exciting and pop. Now, to finish off these looks, I think I am going to put on some liner and mascara and just do a little bit of face, and then I will come back to show you how everything turned out, and we'll have a kind of a closeout. Be right back. Alright, I have returned at last. I just put on some concealer, blush, some lipstick kind of thing, and some brows. So anyways, final thoughts on this topic. This is just this was just to have fun. There's no right way to do any of these color patterns or theories or anything. I think with the rules that I suggested, sticking to 3 colors at first, sticking to one of the patterns I suggested, those can kind of get your imagination started. Oh my god. And then once you've gotten the hang of it, you can do pretty much anything you want. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video, as crazy and wild as it's been, and that you have taken something from it that you can turn into beautiful art on your eyes. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and thank you so much for joining with me. I'll see you soon. Bye.